Hey all you cats and chicks out there, welcome back to Control Players Unite. I'm your host, Dr. Red. Today we are reviewing all of the control style cards in the Twilight Masquerade expansion with the same categories we've always used. So let's get into it. Some of these cards will have an elaboration, some of them won't. First we have increased attack cost, auto KO, and card lock. There is one of each. Pinsir with the slow crunch attack has discard all energy from this Pokemon. At the end of your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon will be knocked out. Currently we have Hisuian Zoroark to do this for free. We have a Graplock for a single fighting energy to do it, which also does 30 damage. So I don't think this card's going to see play until after the next rotation. But it is worth noting it has superpowered horns for 100, so maybe you could do some damage to Charizard. Otherwise, maybe a one-off in some decks. Rillaboom, this will be an extra attacker for the Festival Grounds deck. It has Drum Beating. During your opponent's next turn, attacks used by the defending Pokemon cost 1 colorless more, and its retreat cost is 1 colorless more. This is great to get yourself out of a jam, as Woodhammer also costs only 1 extra grass energy on top of that. Has 180 HP. It's a solid backup just in case something goes wrong with Festival Grounds. Then we got Screamtail EX. This card's getting no love right now, but we're going to love it here on Control Players Unite. It has the Scream attack for 1 colorless energy. You can use this attack only if you go second and only on your first turn. Your opponent can't play any supporter cards from their hand during their next turn. It also has Crunch for 1 psychic and 2 colorless energy. Discard energy from your opponent's active Pokemon, doing 120 damage. It's an ancient card with 190 damage. Maybe something will come out in the future where we can use this, or you could just try to go rogue and see if you can get it to work now. Either way, it's a solid aggro control attacker, but not much else going for it right now. Next we have ABD Prevention. This is attack, board state, and damage prevention, all those cards that stop those things. So let's get to it. Next, first we have Poltergeist with the Storehouse Hideaway ability. As long as this Pokemon is on your bench, prevent all damage from and effects of attacks from your opponent's Pokemon done to this Pokemon. This is for the Sinistcha EX deck. This also is basically the same ability as what Bidoof currently has, the one with 60 HP. Next we have Chi-Yu with Ground Melter. If a stadium is in play, this attack does 60 more damage, then discard the stadium. You might put this in an Incineroar deck. You could try it with Charizard maybe, but with Dragapult being around, not sure what you would do with it. Roaring Moon, of course, needs stadiums to do extra damage, so maybe you could put it in if you're trying to combat Roaring Moon. Melodic, Mentally Calm ability. Your opponent's Pokemon in play and all attached cards can't be put into your opponent's hand. This is the anti-penny, anti-control card of the year. Except I'm not sure how many people are going to use it unless they're trying to make a very specific meta call. You could fit this into Chi-Yu if you wanted to. Baxcalibur powering up Hydro Splash for 100 damage. Not sure how well it would be received otherwise and in what capacity you'd use it, unless you're just teching for control. I mean, control could even use it if it doesn't want to use Penny or Turo. For decks that use Turo or Scoop Up Cyclone, this card also just completely nullifies. So if Dragapult wants to use it or Charizard, but again, hasn't seen any play yet in Japan as far as we know, and so far not here in the West. Seeking, pick off. Before doing damage, discard all Pokemon tools from your opponent's active Pokemon. This is the evolution from the new Goldeen with Festival Grounds. Not sure this card's going to see any play, maybe in the future if the Water Festival Grounds becomes popular or usable. Iron Thorns EX. This card is making a splash as a quads deck. Just 4 copies of this card and that's it. It has the ability Initialization. As long as this Pokemon's in the active spot, Pokemon with a Roblox in play, both yours and your opponent's, have no abilities except future Pokemon. That's right. Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon EX's ability that stops it from taking damage from Pokemon with abilities, that is completely nullified. I'm not sure how this card interacts with Fluttermane, because Fluttermane's supposed to shut down whatever card is in the active. I'm not sure which one has priority. This card is a pain to play against, though. Basically, Mimikyu stops it, and that's about it. So if you got Mimikyu, put it in the active and just wait. Otherwise, it's apparently a really fun aggro deck. Next, we have the new Pheasantipity. Has the Adrena Pheromone ability. If this Pokemon has any Darkness Energy attached and is damaged by an attack, flip a coin if head to prevent that damage. Ambipom has that ability. This card hasn't seen any play just yet. You might fit it in Gardevoir if you're feeling feisty. Palossand, Sand attack, 1 psychic, 2 colorless. During your opponent's next turn, if the defending Pokemon tries to use an attack, your opponent flips a coin. If tails, that attack doesn't happen. So this is basically Vanilux's ability in an attack. Again, Psychic, you could try a unique meme attack prevention kind of a deck. This does need a little bit of love though for 3 energy, so I would think a Psychic and a DTE. But again, it's on a coin flip, so maybe you'll have some fun with this. Maybe it'll get some play in the future as a one-off, I'm not sure. Then one of my favorite cards, Cornerstone Mask Ogre Pawn EX, the ability Cornerstone Stance, prevent all damage from attacks done to this Pokemon by your opponent's Pokemon that have an ability. That means Pidgeot EX, Charizard EX, Chien-Pao EX. You know the whole list. It also has Demolish, 1 fighting, 2 colorless for 140 damage. This attack's damage isn't affected by weakness or resistance or by any effects on your opponent's active Pokemon. So it's basically a Alolan Vulpix V-Star in a basic. This could be used as a one-off in pretty much any deck you can imagine, just as a stall tactic. I almost beat a Blissey EX deck with Palkia V-Star, except that I overbenched and my opponent could boss me up. Otherwise, I would have won because Blissey EX and Palkia V-Star can't touch it. So, there you have it. Next, we got Hisuian Growlithe, Blazing Destruction, discard a stadium in play. Note that that's a free attack. Ting Lu, Ground Crasher. If a stadium is in play, this attack does 30 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon and discard that stadium. That's a good anti-Roaring Moon card. This is also, I guess you could count it as like a spread deck, but you got to be aware of Manaphy and Rapska, although Rapska isn't seeing too much play. I could see this as a fun little like backup attacker for any number of fighting decks if you want to have some fun with Hisuian Growlithe V maybe, or Lycanroc EX. Does anyone actually try Lycanroc anymore? I'm just, you know what I mean. Any of those EX attackers, this card could fit in pretty well with them. Skarmory, Big Storm, discard a stadium in play. This could possibly work as a backup attacker for something like a Melmetal EX or a Dialga V-Star, but those decks are doing just fine without it right now. Accompanying Flute, Control's best friend. Reveal the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck. You may choose any number of basic Pokemon you find there. Put those Pokemon on your bench. Your opponent shovels the other cards back into their deck. I saw a Japanese deck list with exactly 4 copies of this and no copies of Erga's Invitation, and it looks like a really fun card to try. This would be good if your opponent for any reason wants low bench space, i.e. again playing against Control, but maybe they're trying to get something else out, like maybe another Ralts or a Radiant Greninja, and you can just spoil it by putting something else there. So definitely worth trying to mess around with your opponent. Here's Festival Grounds. Each Pokemon that has any energy attached recovers from all special conditions and can't be affected by special conditions. This is essentially Ancient Booster Energy Capsule in the form of a stadium. It could fit with anything, but it's made for the Festival Grounds archetype. A deck that has given me much grief in the short time we've had it available for play here. Jamming Tower. This is one of my new favorite cards. Pokemon tools attached to each Pokemon have no effect. So imagine your opponent playing Hero's Cape. You do enough damage that would ordinarily KO them, but Hero's Cape stops it. Play Jamming Tower and they're defeated. Haven't seen any decks with this one in it yet. I could definitely see it in a Control deck. A deck that even runs no tools or very few tools, maybe like a Forest Sealstone, and you've already used it, so there's no point in even keeping it around. Definitely worth considering in your decks. Now we're back to the beginning. Okay. Next, we go into Aggro, Control / Tempo. There's only 3 of them. First, we got Luxray EX. Piercing Gaze, 2 colorless energy, 120. 120 damage. Your opponent reveals their hand. Discard a card you find there. Any card you find. I almost beat Dragapult EX with one of the builds I'm working on. I couldn't get Rapska out in time, but I will say that I was able to discard 2 Dragapults from my opponent's hand, and I would have had them had it not been for a few other things. So it's definitely a fun deck, if nothing else, to play. Maybe it needs a little bit of help, or maybe we just need to get the right combo out. I think it's one of those decks that feels like it needs the right combo. I've been experimenting with Bibarel, Manaphy, I said Rapska, and a few other cards like Squabbit. So, definitely worth checking out and pursuing in the future. We're back to Screamtail. We already went over this. Your opponent can't play any support cards during their hand and discarding an energy. And then Cornerstone Mask Ogre Pawn EX, which we also already went over. So next we have card search and retrieval cards. First we have Thwackey for the Festival Grounds archetype. Boom Boom Groove ability. Once during your turn, if your active Pokemon has the Festival Lead ability, you may search your deck for a card, put it into your hand, then shuffle your deck. You get 4 of these bad boys on the bench, and you will basically get 4 Pidgeot EX quick searches in a single turn. It is absolutely insane. I wonder how popular this is going to be if we can find the right build for it. This also is the deck you want to include that one off Rillaboom. Emolga, Skywave. This attack does 10 damage to each benched Pokemon, but it's here because it's a free retreat. Abra, Teleporter. I said retrieval, I meant free retreat. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon is in the active spot, you may shuffle it and all attached cards into your deck. This is going to be used with the new Palafin EX, because you need to be able to get your Palafin EX from the bench into the active to attack, if I'm not mistaken. So Abra is going to be the card that does that. Greninja EX, it has the Shinobi Blade attack for a single water energy. It does 170 damage. You may search your deck for a card and put it into your hand and then shuffle your deck. So it's basically a quick search, but with damage. This is an archetype of its own. It's being paired with Frostlass with the Freezing Shroud ability, which allows you to put a damage counter on any one of your opponent's Pokemon and your own that has an ability on it, except for Frostlass. So it's a good way to chip away energy like a spread deck does. The new A-Spec Secret Box. You can use this card only if you discard 3 cards from your hand. Search your deck for an item, a tool, a supporter, and a stadium. So 4 cards. Reveal them, put them into your hand. I'm really excited for this card. I think it has potential, but again, I don't know if we're going to use it too much because of Hero's Cape and Prime Catcher. I'm thinking Control might be able to use it if they need to get 4 very specific cards, like say Counter Catcher and an Airy or something like that. But time will tell what wants to use this deck. And we're back to the beginning. Okay, next we're doing damage counter cards. We got Sinistcha with Curse to Drop. Put 4 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon in any way you like. Again, this is for Sinistcha EX, which is the very next card. It has the attack Rebrew for 1 colorless energy. Put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon for each basic grass energy card in your discard pile. Then shuffle those energy cards into your deck. So you want a very heavy discard for this. You want Professor's Research, you want Ultra Balls, you want anything that's going to discard cards. Maybe the new Morpeko that lets you look at the top card of your deck and discard it. It can do some serious damage. It's a sniping card, so beware of Manaphy. It looks like a lot of fun. It is its own archetype. There's Frostlass, I just mentioned, Freezing Shroud. During Pokemon checkup, put 1 damage counter on each Pokemon that has an ability except any Frostlass. This card is extremely fun to play. Takes a little bit to get it in. You can't use Salvatore because it has the ability, but nevertheless, turn 1 going first, get a Snorunt down, get your Frostlass out next, and just chip away at it. You defeat your opponent by building up their Pokemon with abilities and then using Devolution to take them out via their previous stage. So that's what Frostlass is doing. It's pretty much compatible with anything that doesn't have an ability on your side if you don't want to use it to chip away. If you don't want to chip away your own damage, but if you pair it with Monkey Dory, you can transfer 30 damage or 3 of those damage counters to your opponent's Pokemon on your turn. So it's definitely worth experimenting. Glaceon, Permeating Chill. At the end of your opponent's next turn, put 9 damage counters on the defending Pokemon. There's a card just like this in the Pokemon 151 set. It's Victory Bell, a Stage 2, and the attack effect does 12 damage counters on the defending Pokemon. This is a bit more manageable as it's a Stage 1 for a single water. Not sure what you'd pair it with. Maybe Chi-Yu again. That's like the big water deck I can think of, and that is out there, frankly. Maybe Wellspring, the new Wellspring Ogerpon EX card, but time will tell. Alakazam, this is another one of my favorite cards. Strange Hacking. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now confused. You may move any number of damage counters from your opponent's Pokemon to their other Pokemon in any way you like. So imagine attacking a Pokemon with attacking a Pokemon with Alakazam EX from the bench. You have Mimikyu or something to stall in the active. That Pokemon gets knocked out. You put this card in, and you take those damage counters on the Charizard EX and spread them all to the bench and just wreak havoc. It's almost like a reverse spread deck in a way, because you're only putting damage on one Pokemon and then you're spreading it rather than spreading it to all of them at a time. Looks like a lot of fun, and we're going to be experimenting with that here on Control Players Unite. Monkey Dory, just mentioned it. Adrena Brain. Once during your turn, if this Pokemon has any Darkness Energy attached, you may move up to 3 damage counters from one of your Pokemon to one of your opponent's Pokemon. This is all the rage with Blissey EX decks because of the switching. The ability allows you to switch. Happy Switch, you can switch Darkness Energy from one Pokemon to the next. So Monkey Dory can just keep moving up to 12 or damage counters or 120 damage per turn over to your opponent's Pokemon. It's absolutely insane. It's a lot of fun. But Monkey Door, I think, could be paired with pretty much anything where you can fit a Darkness Energy in just so you can heal and dish out some damage back to your opponent's Pokemon. And it reminds me of the Witch's Domain ability on Hatterene VMAX, which allowed you to take 2 damage counters from your active Pokemon to put them onto your opponent's active Pokemon. But this is much more flexible, as you can put 3 damage counters anywhere on your opponent's board. Swirlix, another Festival Lead ability, has sneaky placement. Put 2 damage counters on one of your opponent's Pokemon. Not sure what we can use this with just yet, as the grass typing for Festival Lead is all the rage, but we'll have to stay tuned for this. Scolipede, it has Dastardly Jab. Put damage counters on your opponent's active Pokemon until its remaining HP is 10. We currently have this with Alolan Raticate from Pokemon 150. Is it one Pokemon? I don't think. No. I'm sorry. It's not Pokemon 151. It's Alolan Raticate. I forget the expansion. It's 3 colorless energies. It does the exact same thing. Typically, players are waiting to use a reversal energy to use that attack, or you could do a DTE and a Darkest Energy since it's not affecting the attack anyway. It's an effect. The trade-off with Scolipede is that it is a stage 2 though, but it is one energy card fewer. It also has 170 HP. And again, like Alolan Raticate, you could pair this with a Brute Bonnet and just take KOs all day. Hasn't seen any play in competitive play. This could definitely be a really fun meme deck though, if someone could get it to pop off. Especially with the new Shrouded Fable expansion coming out in August and all the emphasis the makers are putting on the poison and dark types. So Scolipede might have a role in those decks. Dragapult EX, what do I need to say? This is the new archetype everyone's craving and raving about. Phantom Dive does 200 damage, and you can put 6 damage counters on your opponent's bench Pokemon any way you like. It's absolutely insanely overpowered. It's hard to overcome. Blissey EX takes care of it pretty well. But basically, pair this thing with Xatu, and you're up and running in no time. You can get charged up in 1 turn and just start taking KOs right away. It's much like Charizard in that respect. And then we're back to Sinistcha. Now we're going to do our drawing cards. Teal Mask Ogerpon EX. Once during your turn, you may attach a basic Grass Energy card from your hand to this Pokemon. If you attach energy to a Pokemon this way, draw a card. If you put a lot of Grass Energy in your decks, you'll be drawing. You draw up to, 4 cards a turn if you put 4 of these bad boys in there. Raging Bolt EX is having a field day with this card because you can discard all of those grass energies that you're attaching to your hand and just take huge KOs. Cornerstone Mask Ogerpon and Mimikyu both stop it though, so if you get one of those, this card can't touch you unless your opponent is playing Canceling Cologne. But Teal Mask Ogerpon EX looks like a lot of fun for aggro players, so it pairs well with itself and Raging Bolt and anything that wants to discard energy, like maybe Giratina V-Star. Chandelure, Alluring Light. Once during your turn, you may have each player draw a card. Not much to say there. Helioptile, collect, draw a card. Blissey EX has the return attack, 3 colorless, 180 damage. You may draw cards, so you have 6 in your hand. This is the card that's getting a lot of attention right now. It's really fun. The strategy is fairly straightforward. And the fact that you can replenish your hand after attacking is a plus. There's really not much more to say other than you can pair it with pretty much anything, because Happy Switch ability, letting you move a basic energy from one of your Pokemon to another one of your Pokemon, is pretty much not overpowered, but it's a really, really good part of the strategy in case you ever get in a pinch, you need to attach an energy. Just use Blissey. So I think it seems to be pretty flexible if you're going to use Happy Switch, but beware if your opponent bosses up, it has a 4 colorless retreat cost. Ducklet, double draw 2 cards. Carmine, one of the new cards. If you go first, you can use this card on your first turn, discard your hand, and draw 5. This is a weaker version of Professor's Research, which states that you can discard your hand and draw 7. The reason why you'd want this card, ladies and gentlemen, is if you are trying to get a ton of cards into the discard pile on the first turn. You want to be able to use this card with something like Squawkabilly, so that you can just put whatever you want in the discard, like say Sinistcha EX's Grass Energy. Whatever you're trying to do, Carmine's the way to go. A one-off, maybe a 2-of, might be good, but otherwise this card isn't probably going to see much play. Perrin, this card's not seeing any play. It's a bit of a meme card. Reveal up to 2 Pokemon in your hand, put them into your deck. If you do, search your deck for up to that many Pokemon, reveal them, put them into your hand, and then shuffle your deck. So if you have a stage 1 out, you need a stage 2, you have 2 stage 1s in your hand you can't use, play Parent, get the 2 stage 2s, and go have fun. I wonder if Control could use this if you say have, you know, a Snorlax in your hand, but you need Pidgeot EX because you have a rare candy. Perrin might be good there. I mean, I think this would be a really fun card to explore in a meme deck. Competitively, not sure what's going to happen there, but, you know, keep your eye on it. Maybe someone will discover something. Lucky Helmet, this is a reprint. If the Pokemon this card is attached to and the active is damaged by an attack from your opponent's Pokemon, draw 2 cards. This card would be really good, I think, if you don't have a draw engine, so you're willing to put something into tank like Blood Moon Ursaluna, attach this, just draw 2 when you get a hit. That's the only thing I can think of. Otherwise, it's a bit of a meme card. And we're back to the beginning. Now we got our energy cards. Leafeon, Leaflet Blessings, attach a basic grass energy card from your hand to one of your bench Pokemon. If you do, heal all damage from that Pokemon. I don't know, maybe like a healing control kind of situation. Maybe with the new Cook card that was released, healing 70 damage. Actually, Cook's not new. He just took a hiatus. I'm not sure what else you could pair this with. Maybe Teal Mask Ogerpon if your Ogerpon gets a lot of damage, or your Sinistcha EX if it gets a lot of damage. Or a colorless card like Blood Moon Ursaluna that could take a bunch of hits. Otherwise, not sure what else you could use this with. Seems like a bit of a meme card. Teal Mask Ogerpon we just went over. Infernape, Pyro Dance. Once during your turn, you may attach a basic fire energy card, a basic fighting energy card, or one of each from your hand to your Pokemon in any way you like. This seems to be made to be paired with the Gouging Fire, if I'm not mistaken. Or is it Koraidon? Let me do a quick check here for you. Actually, no, check that for me. It's one of the two, Koraidon or the other one. Not sure if it's going to see any play. It's a bit early to tell. The pros seem to think it's rather memey. Otherwise, you know, we'll just go from there. Goldeen, Festival Lead, Whirlpool, flip a coin. If heads, discard an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. A good disruption card. Not sure what Festival Lead's going to do with this now. Maybe something in the future. Morpeko has Snack Seek. Once during your turn, you may look at the top card of your deck, discard that card, but we're here because of Pick and Stick. Attach up to 2 basic energy cards from your discard pile to your Pokemon any way you like. It's basically a single prize Squawkabilly. I've seen this card in a Rotom V-Star Rogue deck that was winning in Japan. Any card, as I mentioned, any deck, as I mentioned before, that wants to discard cards, this would be worth it as at least a one of, just to, you know, get that little extra sneak peek for deck knowledge. Screamtail, we went over. The new Chansey, Lucky Attachment, attach a basic energy card from your hand to one of your Pokemon. What can I say? It just pairs with the new Blissey EX. Blissey EX right there. Once during your turn, move a basic energy from one of your Pokemon to another. We already went over Blissey. Farfetch'd, Mach Cut, discard a special energy from your opponent's active Pokemon. That's a very interesting move. The Impromptu Carrier ability allows you to search your deck for a tool card and attach it to this Pokemon. I'm thinking this has a use somewhere. We just haven't discovered it yet. I'm sure there's some combination of cards that could be really, that this card would just flourish with, but I don't know what it is offhand. Enhanced Hammer, this is a reprint. Discard a special energy from one of your opponent's Pokemon. This is basically Giacomo on an item card. It is absolutely crazy. Your opponent might have that 1 or 2 of DTE, like in a Tinkaton EX deck. Slap an Enhanced Hammer in it and just wreak havoc, taking out the special energies. And you can still use your supporter for turn. Handout Fan is a new one. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is in the active spot and is damaged by an attack, move energy from the attacking Pokemon to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon. This is basically Gengar EX's Tricky Steps attack in the form of a tool. And I love it. It's really quirky. The danger is that your opponent's going to have something that it wants to be charged. I played this with Luxray against Dragapult, and I had to charge up his Xatu, which was helping him in case he ever needed to pivot in. And it wasn't good, but, you know, it was an experiment. I'm surprised Handout Fan is being used with Gengar more, so you could, you know, possibly move 2 energies in 2 turns. But, you know, it is what it is. Then we're back to the beginning. Now we're doing our free attack cards. We have Conkeldurr, Gutsy Swing. If this Pokemon is affected by a special condition, ignore all energy in this attack's cost. Now it has Tantrum, which confuses itself, but why do that when you just bench a Brute Bonnet and poison it when the Brute Bonnet has an Ancient Energy Capsule attached to it? You're doing 250 damage, ladies and gentlemen, for 0 energy. That's better than the Palafin EX. That's absolutely insane, to the effect that Palafin EX costs a single water energy. Hisuian Growlithe, Blazing Destruction is free. Hisuian Arcanine, Proud Fangs. If your bench Pokemon has any damage counters on them, this attack does 90 more damage. Blood Moon Ursuline EX, Seasoned Skill Ability. The Blood Moon attack used by this Pokemon costs 1 colorless less for each prize card your opponent has taken. And Blood Moon is worth 5 colorless energy. So if your opponent has taken 5 prize cards, this Pokemon attacks for free. Blood Moon for 240 damage. During your next turn, this Pokemon can't attack. So beware, ladies and gentlemen, you're going to need Penny if you want to heal it and be able to attack with it next turn. Make sure you have a pivot like Pidgeot EX to go into the active spot. Basically, the ability is also Radiant Charizard's ability for just reducing energy costs according to opponent prizes being taken. And we're back to the beginning there. Next, we have our gusting cards. There's only 3. Dipplin. Dipplin? That must be a mistake. Iron Bundle. Switch this Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon. If you do, switch out your opponent's active to the bench. Flourishes, or is it Flourish? I'm not sure. Once during your turn, you may flip a coin. If heads, switch in one of your opponent's benched Pokemon to the active spot, and the new active Pokemon is now confused. I don't know why I put Dipplin in here. Just ignore me. CPU, hand, and deck manipulation. We got Snorunt, Astonish. Choose a random card from your opponent's hand. Your opponent reveals that card and shuffles it into their deck. This is the base card for the Frostlass card we showcased earlier. Morpeko, we already went over that. Once during your turn, look at the top card of your deck, discard that card. Then Shinx, which goes with the new Luxray. Curiosity, your opponent reveals their hand. Oh, then of course Luxray EX when you actually look at your opponent's hand and discard a card with Piercing Gaze. Also Jacloak, Recon Directive. Once during your turn, you may look at the top 2 cards of your deck, put one of them in your hand, put the other card on the bottom of your deck. Gothitelle has this ability too, except that you use it against your opponent so that you can give them the worst of the 2 cards. Ambipom, when you play this Pokemon from your hand to evolve, on your Pokemon you flip 2 coins for each head, choose a random card from your opponent's hand. Your opponent reveals those cards and shuffles them into their deck. Doesn't seem worth it when you can get a guarantee, or at least try on a coin flip with something else more than once rather than just when you evolve. That would be really good in a meme deck. Unfair Stamp, the most talked about ace spec card, considered by some to be the best card in this new expansion. You can use this card only if one of your Pokemon was knocked out during your opponent's last turn. Each player shuffles a hand to their deck. You draw 5, your opponent draws 2. The only thing I would note, ladies and gentlemen, is if your opponent has something like Beaverell or Pidgeot EX to search for something, it might not matter. If you're playing Arbok EX, you can get rid of those 2 cards in the hand with the Menacing Fangs attack. But again, if your opponent has something to draw with, so what? So Unfair Stamp, not saying it's worthless, it definitely is worth playing, but just keep that in mind. Lucian, each player shuffles their hand, it puts it on the bottom of their deck. If either player puts any cards on the bottom in this way, each player flips a coin. If heads, that player draws 6. If tails, they draw 3. So it's sort of like Iono with the disruption. Hasn't seen any play yet, and we're back to the beginning. Next we have our healing cards, and there are 8 of them. Leafeon, Leaflet Blessings, we went over that. Sinistcha EX has Matcha Splash, heal 30 damage from each of your Pokemon, also does 120 damage. Abra, we went over this. Teleport ability gets rid of damage counters. Chimecho, Homeward Chime. Shuffle one of your bench Pokemon and all attached cards into your deck. So that's a good way to get something that has a lot of heavy damage out. Maybe you have a Dragapult, Cough Cough, that you don't want taking any more damage from, say, something like Radiant Alakazam or a Bench Snipe. Monkey Dory, we went over that. Scoop Cyclone, this is another highly talked about ace spec. Put one of your Pokemon and all attached cards into your hand. This is basically Professor Tura's scenario, except that with scenario, you have to discard the cards attached to it, such as energy and tools, whereas Scoop Up Cyclone, you don't do that. So it's good for anything like Charizard, EX, Dragapult that doesn't want to lose something that you worked for with the energy. Community Center, this hasn't seen any play yet. Once during each player's turn, if they put a supporter card from their hand, they may heal 10 damage from their Pokemon. That's paired with the new Caretaker card, but that's not, Caretaker doesn't heal though. Here's Cook that I mentioned before. He was on the E block, he took a short hiatus, and now he's back on the H block. Heals 70 damage from your active Pokemon. Welcome back, Cook. Heal decks, healing archetypes. Good addition to that. Something with Radiant Serena would be good. Next we have only 3. Mill and Prize Denial combined. Chandelure. Once during your turn, you may have each player draw a card. Why am I putting this under mill? Well, you're not milling your opponent in the sense that you're getting rid of their card, but you are forcing them to take something from the top of their deck. And theoretically, if they have one card left, that means they lose on the very next turn. So I thought it was worth including, if only for completion's sake. Macargo EX, ground burn, discard the top card of each player's deck. This attack does 140 more damage for each energy discarded in this way. If you pair this with Team Star Grunt, that is fantastic. Team Star Grunt is a control card that allows you to put an energy from your opponent's active Pokemon onto the top of their deck. So you can guarantee 280 damage right there. And it is, of course, a mill card because it's putting a card into the discard pile. Legacy Energy, this is the most wanted A-Spec card for Lugia V-Star decks. As long as this card is attached to a Pokemon, it provides every type of energy, but provides one energy at a time. So it's a luminous energy in that regard. But what makes it a legacy energy, ladies and gentlemen, is that if the Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out by damage, that player takes one fewer prize card, and you can't use the effect of your legacy energy more than once per game. So if it's in your discard pile, you can't get it back into your deck. And even if you could, or if you can, you can't reuse the legacy energy ability. So a 2-prizer becomes a 1-prizer, a 1-prizer becomes a 0-prizer. This is good for any deck, but Lugia likes it because Lugia likes special energy. And we're back to the beginning. Next we have Retreat Lock and Shuffle Away. Ariados, Big Net ability. Your opponent's active evolution Pokemon's retreat cost is 1 colorless more. This pairs really well with Spidops or anything that you want to hit for weakness with an increased retreat cost. You could also put a pair of super effective glasses on this thing and have it take out Charizard. But with how much Charizard isn't being played compared to Dragapult, I'm not sure what this is going to do unless you want to make like a retreat lock control deck. Wink, wink, nudge, nudge. Illumise or Illumise, as I think the French is pronounced. Slowing Perfume. You can use this attack only if you go second and only during your first turn. Shuffle one of your opponent's benched Pokemon and all cards attached into their deck. So if you want to take a chance like with Screamtail, go for it. I guess this card could fit anywhere as it is only a single colorless energy, but I'm not sure what you would use it with, like why you would want to use it if your opponent isn't setting up, but that's a chance you have to take with any deck. Rillaboom, we talked about him before. Wellspring Mask Ogerpon EX has Sob, 1 colorless and 20 damage. During your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. There are some control players using this in place of Mawile in their Pidgeot EX builds because it has more HP. It is doing 20 damage, but if you just attach a double turbo energy, that gets rid of the damage, so you're going to be okay. Just beware of Enhanced Hammer and Giacomo. Otherwise, you could see this with the Baxcalibur Champao build because Torrential Pump will do 120 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon if you discard the energy and just get it back with Superior Energy Retrieval. So those are some ideas for Wellspring Mask Ogerpon EX. Luxio, which is in the Luxray line. During your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. Mighty Yena, Corner. During your opponent's next turn, the defending Pokemon can't retreat. Whirlipede, this is in the Scolipede line. Poison Ring, your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned. During your opponent's next turn, that Pokemon can't retreat. We're back to the beginning. Now we have all the special and condition cards. There's a handful of these. Heracross, Body Slam, flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. Ninetales, Eerie Glow, your opponent's active Pokemon is burned and confused. This could be good with Infernape. Slugma is the previous evolution of Macargo. Your opponent's active Pokemon is now burned. There's Macargo EX, we already went over that. Hot Magma burns your Pokemon. Frogadier is in the Greninja line. Flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. Poliwhirl is its own line with Poliwag and Poliwrath. Hypnosis, your opponent's active Pokemon is asleep, and there's Poliwrath. Hypnosis does the same thing. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the only asleep cards in the entire expansion. Bellybolt, Thundershock, flip a coin of heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed. I'm not sure what you would pair a lot of these cards with other than whatever their major archetypes are as backup attackers. Wattrel has Thundershock, flip a coin of heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is paralyzed. Zapdos, Thunderwave, flip a coin of heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is paralyzed. Alakazam we talked about with Strange Hacking, that pretty much goes with the other Alakazam or anything you can do heavy hitting with. Farigiraf, Eerie Wave, your opponent's active Pokemon is now confused. This is looking like a meme deck, although a bit of a fun one. Wonderful Rumble. This attack does 4 damage for each one of your Stage 1 Pokemon in play. If you're an aggro player, you could definitely pair this with the new Aroma A-Spec and get your Stage 1s all set up very easily. You got Flourish or Flourishes. Once during your turn, flip a coin if head, switch your opponent's active Pokemon to the bench, and the new active Pokemon is now confused. I forgot to mention earlier, this is like Radiant. This is like the Venusaur from 151, except that Pokemon is also poisoned, I think, in addition to confused, but it is what it is. Monkey Dory, we went over that, but Mind Bend here confuses your Pokemon, your opponent's Pokemon. Slurpuff has Slurp, flip 2 coins. This attack does 90 damage for each heads. If they're both tails, though, your opponent's active Pokemon is confused. That's a really good effect, if nothing else. Usually tails doesn't do anything. Conkeldurr, we talked about him. Tantrum, you self-confused. Glamora says Stun Poison, flip a coin. If heads, your opponent's active Pokemon is now paralyzed and poisoned. That's interesting. That could pair with a Baby Glamora deck or a Glamora EX deck as another option. Hisuian Arcanine, Searing Flame, your opponent's active Pokemon is burned. Another Brute Bonnet, your opponent's active Pokemon is now poisoned with Poison Spray. You probably want to use this for Relentless Punches, but otherwise the other Brute Bonnet seems to be the better deal. Venipede from the Scolipede line, Spit Poison, your opponent's active Pokemon is poisoned. There's Whirlpede, we just went over that one. Heatran has Incandescent Body. If this Pokemon's in the active spot and is damaged by an attack, the attacking Pokemon is burned. I've seen this paired with Dialga V-Star and the Metang Energy Acceleration Engine as a backup attacker. Steel Burst 50 times the number 50 times. Discard all metal energy from this Pokemon. This attack does 50 for each card you discarded in this way. We're back to the beginning. All right, everybody, last one, the tanks and retrieval cards. We got Tangrowth, Thicket Body. This Pokemon takes 30 less damage from attacks. Torkoal, Ramming Shell. This Pokemon takes 30 less damage from attacks. Fion or Fione. Beckon, put a supporter card from your discard pile into your hand. This is going to replace, I think, the Regieleki with the Trainer Retrieval card whenever rotation hits, but that's not for a while, so I don't think this card is going to get any attention until then. You could see this in any deck that wants to get a supporter back. I know Regieleki is being paired with Charizard right now, so you could probably see Fion there. You could also see it in control decks like Snorlax and Pidgeot EX, perhaps. Okidogi, Adrena Power. If this Pokemon has any Darkness Energy attached, it gets 100 HP, plus 100 HP, and the attacks do 100 more damage to your opponent's active Pokemon. So a single prizer worth 230, very bulky, tanky, hard to KO. That could be a good one-off in any type of fighting archetype. Aggron has Angry Slam. This attack does 50 damage for each of your opponent that have any damage counters on it. That's basically Hisuian Zoroark V-Star in a in a stage 2 as a single prizer and for 1 less energy. Guard Claw says that this Pokemon takes 50 less damage from attacks, so it's tanking, so it basically has 230 HP if you use Guard Claw. Survival Brace is a new A-Spec. I've seen it paired with Blissey EX. If the Pokemon this card is attached to has full HP and will be knocked out by damage from an attack, remember this Pokemon, it's not knocked out, its remaining HP becomes 10, then discard this card. This is actually really good for those really low single prizers you know are going to get donked, but it gives you a turn just to try to get something set up. But I don't know if your Pokemon is poisoned. I don't think it would work. So like if you take a hit and the effect of the hit is poison, would it KO you? I'm actually not sure. You have to check the Pokemon Compendium rules for that one. Back to the beginning. Okay, everybody, those are all the control style cards in Twilight Masquerade. Thanks for watching. Let me know if you have any suggestions or comments. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Please take care of yourselves, and may God bless you.